Features of the translation of American socio-cultural realities onto the Ukrainian language. Relevance of the work. The emergence of sociological linguistics in the 1920s and 1940s and its active development in the second half of the 20s and the beginning of 21st centuries contributed to the shift of emphasis in linguistics and the clarification of the idea of the social nature of language through the prism of language. Society and language is socially engaged individuals. The main goal of this work is to study the peculiarities of the translation of American sociocultural realities onto the Ukrainian language. The object of research is linguistic realities in the English language. Chapter 1. Theoretical justification of the concept of sociocultural translation. The concept of sociocultural competence arose on the basis of the synthesis of such concepts as social linguistics and linguistic competences, cultural literacy, cultural aspect, linguistic personality, worldview. Sociocultural competence is an aspect of communicative ability which includes characteristic features of society and its culture, which is manifested in the communicative behavior of the member of the society. Characteristic features are considered to be social customs, nonverbal, the meaning of gestures, verbal, the beginning of the end of a conversation, methods of attracting attention, social rituals, time of visiting acquaintances, friends, generally accepted topics of conversation, etc. Universal experience, knowledge of the culture of the country whose language is studied. Valentina Safranova singles out the following components of sociocultural competence: general cultural, generalized picture of the human world, marked by country studies, linguistic and cultural studies, social linguistic, and social competences, which determine the content of sociocultural competence as a set of certain knowledge, skills, abilities, and qualities. All types of competence can be considered as facets of communicative competence. In order to realize their communicative intentions, those who study language and literature apply communication competences, which include linguistic competences. Markers of social relations differ in different languages and cultures. They depend on such factors as the social and age status of the interlocutors, the closeness of the relationship, the register of speech. Here are some examples of translation into English. Use and choice of the form of greeting at the meeting. Use and choice of the form of greeting when getting acquainted. Use and choice of form of address. Official, formal, informal, familiar, intimate, and authoritarian. Chapter 2. Sociocultural reality in the system of non-equivalent vocabulary of the modern English language and methods of its translation into Ukrainian. Translation of dialectics. The main difficulties of translation of dialectics are that for this purpose, it is impossible to use dialectal forms of the translation language, even if they exist, because they identify a completely different group of people. On this slide, there is an example of dialectism of the phonographic level. Translation of slang words complicates the translator's work. It is necessary to have knowledge in a narrow field and constantly engage in self-education in order to be in constant and continuous contact with modern trends. For a language, slang is like a linguistic laboratory in which new forms, words, and expressions are tested. The characteristic features of general slang are common and understandable for all social groups, has a pronounced emotional and evaluative character, sometimes has phonetic, morphological, and syntactic features. Generally and functionally different from special slang, often includes the jargon of the past. Slang constructions can be included in the following spheres of communication: social and household, family, professional and labor, socio-cultural, show business, student room, public activities, administrative and legal, games and hobbies, spectacular and mass. The next one. Translation of phraseological units. Phraseology is a treasury of language. It reproduces the life history of the people, its culture and identity. From the point of view of translation studies, it is appropriate to divide phraseological realities into historical, semantic, and structural plans. From a historical semantic point of view, the following stand out: actual reality based on exciting reference, historical realities, archives. Structurally, the following stand out: monomial realities, polynomials of a nominative character, realities, phraseologies. Realities are classified according to the objective feature. Geographical realities, social and political realities, ethnographic realities, ethnic objects, military realities. There are following ways of translation these realities: transliteration, transcription, functional analog, traces, contextual analog. Conclusion. The main criteria for evaluating a translation are the transfer of semantic information and the preservation of the national and historical flavor of the original text. In the first chapter, the theoretical and historical aspects of the development of socio-cultural competence were investigated. As a conclusion, we can say that socio-cultural competence is a combination of cultural and regional studies, linguistic and social linguistic knowledge, and the ability to use them in intercultural communication. In the second chapter, we consider the peculiarities of the translation of dialectism, which represent significant translation difficulties, characterize the concept of slang from the point of view of socio-cultural competence. We also consider the main methods and ways of translating phraseological units, analyze the number of realities of socio-cultural translation. Thanks for the attention.